Welcome back to more of my video game collection. I know I said I was going to do my Wii games in my last video, but I didn't have much to say about those, at least right now. I'll do those probably later, but I have a lot more to say about my N64, and I'm also combining this with my Sega Saturn collection. I got quite a few. I got like 25, 26 N64 games. I only have about 8 of Saturn games. As you can see there, the pile's pretty small, but I figured, so that's why I figured I'd combine the two here, and plus they're part of the same generation. So let's get started. I'm going to start with this pile right here. I have Donkey Kong 64. Now this game was so big it actually came with the RAM expansion pack for the N64 because there was a lot of worlds and 5 different Kongs you can play as. There's a lot to do, so I'm guessing that's probably why it required the pack. But it's a really good game. It's pretty much the same as Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie before it. But yeah, still a really good game. I love the Donkey Kong Country series on Super Nintendo, which I'll get to in another video. Put that aside right there. Then I have, of course, Zelda: The Ocarina of Time. A lot of people consider this the best Zelda game out there. And it's very good. Some people say it's the best game of all time. That's debatable, but I really liked it. The graphics are a little simple for nowadays, although there is a remake on the 3DS where the graphics look a lot better. But still, a revolutionary game in the series. It's a revolutionary game overall. All right. Then here's the aforementioned Banjo-Kazooie, which again follows in the Mario 64 go into a level, collect stars, or in this case puzzle pieces, but still really good game. Highly recommend it. The famous GoldenEye 007, one of the first proper first-person shooters for a console. It hasn't aged very well in terms of graphics, but it's still multiplayer fun, and the single-player campaign's pretty good too. I haven't played it for a while, but I may do that again. And of course, Star Fox 64, big improvement over the Super Nintendo version, I thought. There hasn't been a proper sequel to this. I mean, unless you count Star Fox Adventures, which a lot of people don't, and I can't blame them for that. But still, not a terrible game. But this one was really good right here. Of course, mine didn't come with the Rumble packs, so. And I've got Mario 64. This was actually the first game I owned for the N64. I got it the day that I got my system. And not much more needs to be said about that. It revolutionized 3D gaming. Okay, on to the second pile here. Right on top, I've got the Resident Evil 2 port for the N64, and this was actually a pretty good port. I mean, since it wasn't on a disc or anything, the video quality on the cutscenes was pretty low, but the actual in-game graphics were a little bit better. They were a little bit higher resolution, a little more detail in the graphics. Good port. Okay. WCW versus NWO Revenge. One of the best wrestling games out there, has one of the best wrestling engines. I'll get to them, but I have all 4 of the Aki THQ wrestling games for the N64. Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer. Not a bad racing game. I actually picked this up like in 2002 or something. It was pretty cheap. I didn't get it when it came out, but I thought, hey, why not? The price was right. This is, I think, the only real sports game I own for the N64. NBA Showtime, which is basically NBA Jam, just with an updated roster. It's made by Midway, so it's from the same people. And I got Nightmare Creatures. This is a game my wife actually got me for Christmas quite a few years ago, back when you could still get N64 games pre-owned at GameStop or any other store. It's actually not a bad game. It's supposed to be kind of a survival horror. I haven't played it all that much. I know I say that a lot, but Halfway decent. Okay, here's another one of the wrestling games. This is actually the first THQ Aki game. WCW NWO World Tour. I got that for Christmas the year it came out. A lot of good memories with that one. Alright. Okay, the famous Super Smash Brothers. All the Nintendo mascots going head to head there. Really had a lot of fun with that. Diddy Kong Racing. Rare's answer to Mario Kart. It has some pluses and minuses against Mario Kart 64. I actually don't own Mario Kart 64 though, but I do own this, so I read about it and saw it in Nintendo Power. It was looked really interesting. I got it for Christmas the year it came out, same year as WCW NWO Revenge, actually. The sequel to Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, considered one of the best sequels of all time. And my games are about to tip over on the floor here, so if you hear a loud thud, that's just them falling over. One of my favorite N64 games, Star Wars Rogue Squadron. A lot of great arcade shoot 'em up, and not quite the same as the X-Wing and TIE Fighter games on the computer, but still really, really good. And it has a sequel, really good sequel on the N64. Actually, it has two sequels, but the first one is, I think, a lot better than the second sequel. So, yeah. Killer Instinct Gold for the N64, which is actually Killer Instinct 2 in the arcade. It's pretty much the same exact game, except they had to downgrade it just because it was on a cartridge. This was actually, I think, a fairly rare game when it came out. And this was one I got later on, like in the early 2000s, used. Okay. Turok 2, The Seeds of Evil. I don't actually own the first game, but this one was far superior, I thought. The graphics were a lot better. The story was a little more coherent. Not that the first game was bad, but this one was a lot better, and they also made it for PC. I haven't seen that one, but... Okay, second to last pile of N64 games. The famous Castlevania 64, although here it's just called Castlevania. And my wife got this for me, bless her heart. She got it for me for Christmas one year, because she knew I liked Castlevania. And it's not a terrible game, it just didn't... Castlevania didn't translate well into 3D, But other than that, you know, I mean, it's not the worst game I've ever played. But she did also get me Symphony of the Night, so there, I guess that kind of made up for it, so yay. Okay, I'm actually going to separate these two. WrestleMania 2000. This is Aki's first WWF game. Came out in, I think, November or December of 1999. I got it for Christmas that year. Basically the same as the other games. I mean, they added a few things, like you can move while grappling, and there were a few other things too. I don't remember all the details. And then also I have No Mercy right here. It's sequel, which a lot of people consider the best wrestling game of all time. Yeah, I might have to agree on that for the most part. I mean, it's got really good roster, a lot of hidden characters, and it improved a lot upon WrestleMania 2000's engine. Really good wrestling game there. Star Wars Shadows of the Empire, one of the first games released for the N64. Most people remember this for the first level Battle of Hoth scene, and that was quite the experience to play. And the rest of the games really, I thought, was pretty good too. I mean, I don't think it was as good as they initially made it out to be, but I thought it was okay. It was pretty good. And then an underrated classic from Rare, Jet Force Gemini. I'm surprised they didn't make a sequel to this one. Instead, they're making Avatar games for the 360 and probably for the Xbox One. But yeah, there's that. It's a nice little sci-fi third-person shooter where you're killing a lot of alien bugs. A lot of fun. Shadow Man, right here. This is a very underrated game. It's actually kind of almost the same formula as, I know it looks like a mature title, but for like Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, where you're kind of on a star/puzzle piece, or in this case, Dark Souls hunt, and the more you collect, the more you can advance through the game. It's a lot of fun. It's got a lot of great characters in it, and it's got a lot of speech for an N64 game too. I also own the PC version of it though. The PC version is a little bit better because the game just plays a little more fluently, and the animations are a lot better. But this is still a really good port of it right here. And then my last pile here, I got two here. Got F-Zero X, the sequel to the Super NES Racing Classic here. This game is a lot faster than the Super NES version, and it's really good. It's actually a really good racer, and you can choose from a lot of cars in it. And last but not least, I have The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, and it's in gold. Ooh. This game kind of took a lot of people by surprise because they weren't expecting it after Ocarina of Time. But I thought it was really good. It's got a really dark story. The graphics are a little bit better than Ocarina of Time. It requires the RAM expansion that came with Donkey Kong 64. And you could tell just by looking at the game there's a lot more detail in it. So that does it for my N64 collection. Now I'm going to move on to the Sega Saturn collection I have. Let's get this over here. Alright, there we go. I'm just going to keep it there. Like I said, I only own a few games for it. Main reason for that is I bought a Sega Saturn for my wife actually about 6 years ago, and I bought it for her because she used to know someone who had one, and she enjoyed a couple of the games on it. And so I found one at a used video game store for pretty cheap, about 30 bucks. The only problem with it is that it doesn't always read the discs, which is why I don't own that many games. I don't want to invest too much in a system that's not really going to work all the time. I mean, granted, I have like 80 or so NES games, and you know the case. You have to blow in those and clean them with alcohol. But since then, I've bought some parts for the Saturn. I bought the memory card that goes in the cartridge slot in order to save games, because the little lithium batteries don't do jack for that. But anyway, I digress here. Let me get on to the games here. I have Virtua Fighter. This was the game that originally came with the Saturn. Right there. And the Saturn was originally supposed to come out in September of '95, but then they pushed the release date up to May, and they threw a lot of the third-party developers off. And that kind of got under their skin, kind of pissed them off a little bit. And of course, we all know the Saturn got overshadowed by the PlayStation, to a lesser extent the N64. But I think it's an underrated system. It's got a lot of good games for it, and a lot of games that I don't have yet. It has a lot of good arcade ports of a lot of the Capcom fighters, like X-Men Children of the Atom and Street Fighter Alpha series. And I'm hoping to get some of those in the near future. But anyway, next game. Speaking of Street Fighter, we have Golden Axe The Duel, which is essentially a Golden Axe tournament fighter. It's actually pretty good. I mean, it doesn't really do anything to redefine the genre, but it's still pretty good. It's got a lot of unique fighters. My wife's actually really good at this one. Then I have the Road Rash port for the Saturn. I mean, it's pretty much the same as the Sega Genesis and Super NES one, except it's got full motion video. Not a bad game. And it's got some band who is that? Like Soundgarden and stuff. But yeah, it's got a lot of music from a lot of bands. That's not a bad game. Mr. Bones. This is a very, very unique platformer. Pretty rare game. It's got pretty good 3D graphics. Pretty unique graphics. A unique look, unique gameplay. Let's say if you're looking for something different and you can get your hands on it on a Sega Saturn, I'd say give it a try. Clockwork Knight. This was one of the first games that came out for the Saturn when it was released early. It's pretty good. It's a really good platformer. It's kind of for like kids. It's like your little toy and you're running around fighting other toys pretty much, but it's really fun. I enjoyed it. It's got a really good soundtrack and everything. Good graphics. Good everything. I'll get to that in a minute. That's just an extra book there. This is one of the more famous games for the Saturn. Nights into Dreams. It's kind of a almost their answer to sort of to Mario 64. It kind of came out around the same time in 1996. Pretty good game. It requires a special controller with an analog stick, which I actually have. It was actually the one that came with the Saturn that I bought, and I also have a regular one for that too. And I think they made a sequel to this on the Wii, like in 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. That's a good game. Oh, here's the Resident Evil port for it. This is the original Resident Evil, the same one that came out on the PlayStation. Pretty much the same game. I think it's got like an additional battle mode that wasn't in there. Yeah, I just kind of got it because I like to collect. I was collecting a lot of the Resident Evil games wherever I could find them. And last, but definitely not least, this is the rarest game that I own. It's Magic Knight Rayearth. It's based on the anime series. My wife really liked this game. I ended up paying like $80-something for it on eBay. I don't remember if I did or she did, but it's not a bad game. It's pretty good. It was the last Saturn game to be released in North America, which is why it's so rare. It's not the rarest game. I mean, that might go to Panzer Dragoon Saga. I'd like to get my hands on that one, but I also don't feel like taking out another mortgage or anything on anything. So, because I think they go for like $2,000 or something. But this is a really good action RPG. Although the in-game graphics, it could have been on a system like Super Nintendo, but the reason it's on here is because of all the cutscenes and the full motion video and all that. But yeah, it's a really good game. If you can get your hands on it, I recommend it. Okay, so there, I killed two birds with one stone there. There's all my N64 games on the floor. Next, I'm hoping to maybe I'll do my Wii games next, or I also want to do my PS1, PS2, and GameCube games, so be looking for that video hopefully in the near future. This is NWO Reverend 96 signing out.